Welcome back to the Whole Nine Yards here on a Monday afternoon. Drew Pien here with Brandon Kokorian. Just going to make sure this works. All right. Brandon, how's it going?
It's going really well. There's not much to complain about. If something different happened in the game that happened on Sunday, maybe it wouldn't be going so well for me, but it's going really well. And then on top of that, um, you know, our picks wise, just complete domination for me, 5-0. So yeah, I feel really good.
Yeah, listen. If I was in your shoes, I, as far as my personal team, I probably wouldn't feel as great as you're feeling right now. But, anyways, for people who are actually curious on our opinions of Cowboys Patriots, we will do a episode on Thursday. We'll be in the studio for that, so it'll look all nice and everything. I'm excited for that. Today, we're going to talk about all the other games, 10 of them or
Yeah.
whatever. For me personally, definitely not doing as well as you are. That's for sure. Tough loss. My predictions did not go very well as either. Although, yeah, I mean,
Well, let's just say this. Well, first off, of course, the best game of the week is the game that we can't even really talk about in this episode, which kind of sucks. But that's gonna be a really good episode on Thursday, or at least when we record it. We'll see when we release it, but that's gonna be a really good episode. But for the picks wise, just two heartbreakers for you because two games that we both picked, but we picked different teams. That was a two-game swing right there. Could have went either way, honestly. The Vikings Panthers game, I had the Vikings, you had the Panthers, and obviously the Cowboys Patriots game, I had Dallas, and you had New England. And I think the Vikings game, I probably should have won that anyways. I mean, they were up 11 with 4 minutes left, so they probably should have won that and covered anyways. But still going to OT, they just kicked the field goal, the game's over, and it still would have covered. But they get the touchdown anyway, so it makes it worth it. But again, the Panthers had a chance as well to win the game, and then you obviously would have got that. So and then obviously the Cowboys game, we'll get into it later, or later in the next episode. But even if they kick a field goal, you still get the cover, but they get the touchdown, so I get it. So it was just a terrible, events for you, two events for you, and again, that could have saved. I don't know exactly what you went. Did you go 1-4? I think you went,
I
um, or two and three,
I
right?
went two, I went 2-1. I want to say, right? Because didn't the Jaguars win by 3?
Oh yeah. They did.
Yeah, so I
So
went two
two,
two and
two
one.
and one. Again, you could have won 4-0-1 if you think about
I
it.
could have, but I also, yeah, I mean, I could have.
If anything, 3-1-1 because the Cowboys Patriots won again a field goal, you still get it. So
Yeah, and I was feeling confident about my taking Miami pick too as well for a bit, but
yeah, that looked. You still. It pushed, but that Miami should have won that game. They should
yeah,
have won that game. They
they
were
should
up.
have.
What? They were up. I forget exactly what the score was, but they were. They were up. They were leading pretty comfortably. I would say that was a bad one as well.
As far as the NFL and London thing is concerned, that's probably the best London game I've seen in a long time, if not ever. Listen, it wasn't great football, but it was a competitive game at least. Both of these teams are bad. I was lower on the Dolphins than most, but even I don't think I expected the Dolphins to be like right now they look like Jets quality team where it's like this team's gonna be bottom five in the league, which I was expecting them to be like a 6-11 team, but they might even be worse than that. So we'll see what
And
happens with
they
them.
and they don't even have their first round pick this year.
They don't. Yeah, that's
So
yeah. Though Houston
that
has it.
just and they went from exactly. They went from the Houston getting all Houston's first round picks, then losing their pick for next year. That is just after a year like this where you're right. I was maybe a little bit higher, but maybe not 10 plus wins like they were last year, but maybe not 6 wins like you probably thought they were. Probably in that middle range, 8 to 9 wins most likely. But yeah, 1-5. And then of course the Tua versus Herbert conversation. Again, Herbert didn't have a great game yesterday as well. We'll get into that, but it's so obvious that he's clearly going to be, one of the better quarterbacks in the league, if not the best quarterback at some point. And Tua, we'll see with Tua. He's only played, a year and a half, technically not even actually played in all those games. And he just looks terrible. He looks awful. And you were more of a Tua guy. I wonder what your, thoughts are on him right now. But, just that's a mistake that's going to set back your franchise for 10, 15 years. And I think we're seeing that so far.
I don't know about 10, 15 years, but it's a big mistake. I mean, it's going to set you back
It
at least
could.
a few years. At least a few years. I mean, I guess
I don't
technically, yeah,
know.
had you taken Herbert, that sets you back 10, 15. assuming you don't get another quarterback in the next 10 years. Yeah. It's a big mistake. Tua, to me, I mean, I thought he was going to be good, obviously. He just doesn't have much special. He's not elite in anything, really. He's a sound decision maker, but, I mean, even his decision making has not been as great as, somebody like him needs to be at decision making. Like, he hasn't. You'd expect him to be at least like Mac Jones was. I mean, Tua, even though Tua doesn't have, elite arm strength, elite stature, I think at Alabama he was still better than Mac. So you'd expect him to be at least as good as Mac. He's not even been that. Probably close, but definitely not as good as Mac. Yeah, we'll see. Brian Flores is a guy that a lot of people had as like on that kind of Sean McDermott trajectory where a new young defensive guy comes in and maybe he changes the culture of that team and they become a perennial top 5 team in the AFC. Brian Flores has not looked great either, which is surprising. I think a lot of people were high on him. So,
Yeah, but yeah, Flores wise, I mean, I think he's in a tough spot. I heard some people saying that if this continues and let's say they end up with like 4 wins or something, which I don't think's out of the possibility. Honestly, this team, they still have a decent defense, but their offense isn't that good. And again, it really relies on Tua. Some people were saying he could get fired at the end of the season or something like that. I don't think that would happen. I think he is a good coach. Maybe he's not as good as we maybe thought he was, but I think he's still a good coach. I think just that quarterback situation is so messed up that it's. I think it's just a bad situation for that team. But I saw that on Twitter a little bit yesterday after the game. Again, a really bad loss. That's a loss that you just can't have that loss, especially you're 1-5 now. You could have been 2-4, and with the way the division is right now, and honestly, the wild card spots in the AFC. If you're around 8-9 wins, you have a chance of making the playoffs. The way it's looking right now, and that Steelers win yesterday definitely didn't help teams like the Patriots. If they want to get one of those last spots, but it's still possible. But with a loss like that, it's going to be tough to try and get the 8-9 wins for that team.
Yeah.
But I think the best, well, I guess the best game on paper yesterday was the Chargers and the Ravens. And that turned out to be, in a week of blowouts, it was one of the blowouts, and I think it was very unexpected. Neither of us even touched the game. Or no, you touched it. You had the Ravens.
I took the
really
Ravens.
Good. Yeah, really good pick. I mean, I don't think you saw this happening, but yeah, just complete domination. I mean, what were your thoughts on the Ravens 5-1 now? Are they, I guess, where do you have them in the AFC? And then what are your thoughts on the Chargers after a disappointing effort?
Yeah, I predicted the Ravens to win 34-6 in last episode. No, I'm kidding. Listen, I was not expecting a blowout for sure. I was expecting a pretty close game, but I honestly thought that, especially considering the Ravens were at home, that they were the better team. Lamar Jackson had been hot, and it's kind of a battle of like different just philosophies of quarterback play, where Herbert's kind of your more, I guess, like modern traditional, if that even makes sense, but he's your modern guy that can kind of do it all, and he's a guy that can do it really well on 3rd and 4th down, hypothetically, and Lamar's the complete opposite, a guy who is elite on 1st and 2nd down, but on 3rd and 4th, where you need him to throw the ball when the defense knows they're throwing the ball, can't really do all that much. It was a blowout game. The Ravens got out to a hot start. The Chargers definitely did not help themselves out at all. This is a game that, it's tough for me to really take anything out of it. I like the Ravens, and I picked them to win the division. I like the Chargers still, even with this loss, but this doesn't tell me anything for the Ravens, because people have been really hyping Lamar up this season because he's been playing like an MVP candidate, but I still want to see Lamar against a good defense in just one of those you gotta have it games where a game maybe in week 6 it's not possible, but week 13, week 14 or something, like later in the season, a game that is going to either determine the division or determine playoff seeding, just primetime game. Baltimore Ravens down by 10 with 10 left. 3rd and 12, you've got to throw the ball. The defense is pinning their ears back, rushing the quarterback. I want to see Lamar Jackson get himself out of a situation like that before I can place him on even the same pedestal that I put. Listen, is Lamar Jackson right now a better quarterback than Herbert? Yes, but I still don't trust Lamar to take you out of a situation like that, because the reality is, in the playoffs, you're going to have that situation. Whether it's against the Chiefs or maybe even the Chargers, you're not going to be able to get to super hot starts in every single 1st and 2nd quarter and just get out to 7-0 leads, 17-6 leads. It's just not going to happen. Not every single game. and Lamar's going to be in that situation. We haven't quite seen him get out of a situation like that in a super meaningful either playoff game or game super late down the stretch. We've kind of seen it this year, but it just, to me, it's too early and I need to see more of it. The Ravens defensively, I mean, they looked great, but again, it's a blowout game. It's like tough for me to really read anything into it. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's just super tough for me to really read anything into the Ravens as, when we're talking tier list of the competitive AFC teams, this game, they're a part of that group, but this game to me doesn't make me think, okay, this is now the team to beat. I still have them where I had them before.
Yeah, I think it was definitely a really good win. I think it showed something. I mean, Lamar wasn't that good in this game. He had 2 picks, got sacked 3 times. It wasn't like he was anything special. I guess he didn't really have to be because the defense was so good. I think it definitely showed more on the defensive side for them to put a performance against one of the better offenses, obviously in the league, to hold them to 195 passing yards, 26 rushing yards. That was impressive. But to your Lamar point about him, again, we saw it against the Colts. He did. That was a pretty impressive game on Monday night. He came all the way back against that team, and again, that's not a great team, but for him to come back in those circumstances was impressive. But we really won't see him play like a top defense or like even like a must win games potentially later in the season until this is the last couple of games of the year. He goes at Browns, home to Packers, at Bengals, but then home to Rams. So 3 out of those 4 games, most likely the Bengals aren't going to be on the echelon of those teams. That's going to be a test right there. We'll see. I mean, maybe they just run away with the division. The Browns have a lot of injuries. They're also 3-3, so we'll see what happens. But maybe it doesn't matter at that point. But we'll see what happens in those games. So again, they're going to have to face a Bills, a Chiefs, a Chargers, a Browns. One of those, or even 2 of those teams in the playoffs, they're going to have to face. They're going to have to beat. They're most likely going to be down at some point. Their defense isn't going to play this well every single time. So, yeah, you're right. Lamar's going to have to show that he can, throw the ball effectively, run the ball effectively, not have turnovers. He definitely throws a lot of picks, that's for sure. And he misses a lot of guys open. I will say Hollywood Brown did drop another touchdown in that game. It didn't really matter, but that is, something that can at least, on a positive side of Lamar is that his receivers definitely aren't great and they aren't helping him that much. But, yeah, we'll see what happens later in the season when he faces teams like that. But, to your point, like, is Lamar a better quarterback right now than Herbert? For sure. But we have to see the passing keep improving. It's been better so far this season, but it needs to keep getting better. And until that point happens, yeah, I agree with you. I think that, they need to have a lead or his defense has to play amazing in a playoff game for them to win, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, you can classify me as a Lamar Jackson hater. I'll go back to my take that I had after week 1 of the NFL season. It's looking awful right now. I said that I would rather have Sam Darnold over Lamar Jackson from now on after week 1 for the rest of their careers. Is that take wrong so far? Is it looking awful? 100%. It's a laughable take. But the reason I had that take, it's really just comes down to my philosophy and my thought process on a quarterback like Lamar, which is he's gonna get you to 12-5 in the regular season, 90% of seasons. He's gonna make you a perennial contender in the AFC, but he doesn't right now have that potential that I see in a Herbert, in a Darnold to a super way lesser extent. Where it's like I said, you're down 10 with 10 minutes left to go, and Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney get to pin their ears back and rush the pass every single play. And you know that you have to pass the ball. You can't run for 10 yards at a time. It's just not enough. So I want to see that. I do want to see that. Like you said, late in the season, I mean, Browns, Steelers, Browns, Packers, Bengals, Rams, Steelers. Now, the Browns and the Steelers might have worse records than you, but listen, this Ravens team almost lost to the Lions, and they typically are a team that will drop a couple games in the season to teams that you don't expect. I mean, it's the NFL as well. It just happens. So even if the Steelers can even just remain competitive, if they can be, 7-5 or something like that, then you have 2 big games against the Steelers, and even against the Browns as well. The Browns are going to be there. Those are going to be big games, and especially the Packers and the Rams. I mean, those are just NFC. Those are potential Super Bowl matchups there. So I want to see those games. If Lamar can get in a situation where he's down 10 against the Packers with 7 minutes left, and he can come back and he can just throw his way down the field with ease and look like one of those guys, then I'll give Lamar his credit. And I'll still give Lamar credit. Like I said, he's a guy that's going to get you to 12-5 in the regular season almost every single year, even if your team isn't the most talented in the league. But I want to see that situation. So we'll see there when we get there. But this Ravens team is for sure a contender. So
Yeah, we'll just have to see what happens at the end of the season. When we get to the playoffs, again, they're obviously going to be there. But going to the team that at least I thought would win this division, and so far obviously has not been the case, is the Browns. The Cardinals-Browns game, Cardinals absolutely destroyed them, 37-14. It was never close, honestly, after basically like halfway through the first quarter, to be honest. The one thing I'll say in defense of the Browns, no Chubb, uh, missing both tackles. Baker gets injured, and then Kareem Hunt gets injured. So obviously they were doing a lot of injuries. Would they win this game if everyone's healthy? Probably not. Maybe it's closer. Maybe they do win. I still think they probably wouldn't. I think the Cardinals' offense is too explosive. But I guess how much you look at this game, maybe not even this game, but how much you look at the Browns as a team with all the injuries that they have. I mean, they're 3-3 right now. Again, this is a team that I did pick for the Super Bowl. Obviously, it's not going the way I wanted to right now. But do you see this team? Still fighting for this division, or do you see this team as kind of just set as a wild card team? Because again, the Ravens, their schedules, it's a pretty easy schedule to be honest, looking at them. And again, the Browns have had a super tough schedule the first six games of the season, but with all these injuries, again, they play on Thursday against the Broncos, short week. We'll see if Baker even plays. Kareem Hunt's already ruled out for that game, so I guess where do you see this team going these next couple weeks?
this division, the Browns fighting for the division is still, unless they just completely tank and are a team that by the time they get to those two Ravens games in November and December are like out of the playoff talks. They're still going to be in the run for this division because you play Ravens and then Steelers and Browns, like Bengals. Sorry, so you've got games that like this team's going to be in the race for the division, even if right now it does not look like it. But is this team a contender to me? Listen, I've been more anti-Browns than you for sure, and probably most people. I like Baker, and I genuinely do like Baker. I don't want to come off as a guy who's like a Baker hater, but I have to compare Baker to his competition, which is Herbert, Mahomes, Lamar, Allen. Even you start to get lower down those tiers. You compare to Mac Jones, but I mean that might be whatever. But those guys specifically, and I just don't think he's on that tier right now. He's not as good as Lamar on first or second down with the run being a threat. He's not as good as Herbert or Mahomes or Allen in third and fourth down. He's not particularly fast. He's not particularly accurate. He's not particularly great pre-snap. He's not particularly great at much. He's a good leader. This Browns team, I don't know that people forget, but was like 1-31 before he got here pretty much, and has been the laughing stock of the NFL for the past, I don't know, 50 years or whatever. He's been a leader of this team, so you got to give him credit for that. But in terms of, right now he's probably, to me, in between that. If you really like Baker, you might have him as like the 12th or 13th best quarterback in the league. If you really don't like him, you probably have him maybe 16-ish. I probably have him but somewhere between 14th to 17th best quarterback in the league. And if this team is going to beat a Bills in the playoffs, most likely at Buffalo, Chiefs probably at Arrowhead, Ravens at Baltimore. I mean, Mayfield has to either outplay the quarterbacks or be really competitive and look like a top 8 guy. And I'm really not sure we've seen that in his career. I mean, we've seen maybe a game or two where we're like, wow, he may have the potential, but I don't think I've seen a full 60 minutes from Baker where I go like, wow, okay, he's for sure, this guy's going to be a top 8 quarterback by next year. Like, we saw that with Herbert literally day one when Tyrod Taylor had that injury from the doctor. Herbert comes out and he pretty much, I think he forced the Chiefs to OT to win that game. And that Chiefs team, went to the Super Bowl. So I just haven't seen that spark from Baker. So it's tough. As far as the rest of the Browns team is concerned, a lot of injuries. Hunt is out for at least a month. The rookie they drafted, I forget how to pronounce his name, but it's the guy that they kind of got late in the draft.
Yeah.
He's out for at least a month. Their receiving core, while ideally is good, it's filled with question marks right now. Odell being one of those. Yeah.
Yeah, they're just dealing with a lot of stuff right now, and I think probably the only time we've seen that, I guess, that special that spark from Baker, I guess maybe a little bit last year when Odell got injured, because that's when they started to get rolling. And honestly, if you don't really count that, I would say probably his rookie year when he finally got to start. I mean, I forget exactly what his record was, but they obviously they weren't good. Tyrod was starting, and then Baker got to start, and he was playing really well. That was probably the only time we kind of seen him like let loose, just kind of play his own style of football, and maybe that's changed. It's clearly changed. He's not the guy he was at Oklahoma at all, where he's like the lead, he's the guy on the team. He's the best player. He's throwing deep. He's super accurate. He's making plays left and right, sometimes with his feet, but a lot of times with his arm. Obviously, we just haven't seen that from him. They're using him as a game manager, play action, run the ball to Chubb, Hunt. Work the game like that, beat the teams down like that. So I don't know. I mean, maybe they have to change their style a little bit, and again, with him being injured, it's not on his throwing shoulder, but still, I think he's had this injury basically the whole season. So it's something of concern. We'll see. Again, their schedule. Again, they went through that. Just I mean, they played the Cardinals, Chargers, Vikings, Bears, Texans, but then you got the Chiefs week 1. I mean, like 4 of those games, at least 3 of those are against really good teams, and then even the Vikings are a decent team. So I mean, like that was just a super hard schedule. At least easens out a little bit with the Broncos, Steelers, Bengals, but even still, it's still a really tough schedule. We'll see where this team goes. I think they're probably going to have to settle for a wild card. I don't see the Ravens really slowing down. They don't play each other till um, November 28th, so that's still not for another 5 weeks. So again, in that time span, I think the Ravens are probably only going to lose like one more game, to be honest. So they'll be 9-2 or whatever. So this division is probably out of question. They're probably looking at a wild card, which means yeah, they're going to be on the road, whether it's in
I'm
Baltimore,
not. I mean, I'm not
Buffalo.
sure the division's out of question. I can. I mean, listen, the Ravens almost lost to the Lions. I expect them to be worse than 9-2. Maybe not much worse, but the Browns November 28th play the Ravens. Play the Ravens again. So, I mean, listen, you kind of get to play
Yeah,
the Ravens twice. You get to play the Ravens twice in a row, and you get a bye. I mean, that's huge. I
but
think.
but
So
they basically have to win. I mean, they play again Broncos, Steelers, Bengals, Patriots, Lions. Out of those 5 games before those Ravens games, you at least got to go 4-1 if you have a chance.
yeah, I mean, I think that's possible.
I think it's possible as well, but
I
again,
mean,
they got to get
if you were to
healthy.
predict it, I would predict the Browns win the Broncos, Browns over Steelers, Browns over Bengals, Browns over Patriots. I
Well,
mean,
how
I'm
about
not
if they?
telling you it's going to happen. I'm just telling you that they'll be the favorite in probably most of those games, if not all of them.
Yeah, I mean they're favored by 4 right now against the Broncos, but I mean, like, is Baker going to play? We know Hunt's not playing. I think Stefanski said Chubb may play, but we don't know. I mean, if both of them aren't playing, you're looking really weak at running back. Their defense has been down. I mean, you're playing the Broncos, so you shouldn't let up a ton of points, but I mean, you've let up 47 and 37 the last 2 weeks, albeit against the Chargers and Cardinals, but still. I don't know. We'll have to see. I think they'll win this game again if Baker does play. I think he will, but I don't know. But it's somewhat of a concern for them. But yeah, in my opinion, I think they're looking at wild card unless they beat the Ravens both times. I mean, or they go undefeated until the Ravens game. The Ravens maybe lose 2 games, but I don't really see that happening, to be honest. So it's going to be a hard path for them. I think they'll still make the playoffs for sure. They're too talented, but it's going to be a hard path for them to get past multiple rounds. I would say because they're going to have to play at a Buffalo, at a Kansas City, at an LA, at a Baltimore. It's just going to be tough. But looking at the other team in this game, the Cardinals, I mean, still 6-0, undefeated. Are you buying them at 6-0? Again, the only other team in that division who could really question them is the Rams with, no Wilson. And the Niners have a lot of problem injuries. And then I think they're 3-3 right now, or 2-3. So are you buying the Cardinals at 6-0? Or are you kind of still looking at them as maybe a better version of the Steelers last year? I guess which one are you looking at?
I mean, if the two sides of the spectrum are slightly better or a better version of the Steelers,
A, a
or
definitely a definitely better team. Not I would say definitely better.
I think they're closer to the Steelers than they are to the Bucks of last year, or whatever Super Bowl team you want to say. I think they're closer to being the Steelers than they would be to being the best team in the NFC. Have they played like the best team in the NFC so far? Arguably, but listen, I mean this team's 6-0, but they still have plenty of question marks. We haven't seen Kyler play particularly great in the months past really October. So I think you need to see that. You didn't have Kingsbury for this game, but I mean that kind of brings up the question is how good is Kingsbury? And, you're going to need him to be a plus for you to be the best team in the NFC, I would assume. You can't just have him being like meh, which he's kind of been so far through his Cardinals career, even though this team is 6-0 right now. Offensively, it's hard to have too many questions. You got Ertz. We'll see. He's more of a lottery ticket to me than anything. But if he can be good for you, obviously you have Hopkins. You have other receivers there as well. The offense shouldn't. Their offense needs to be good. It needs to be good, and I think it will be good. I think we will see Murray play well, and I think I don't think he's going to be an MVP this year, but he'll be in those talks for sure all season long. I don't expect him to fall off as hard as he did last year, really. The defense, on the other hand, listen, you've got some old pieces, and you've got some pieces that, frankly, I'm not too confident in. How confident are you? Listen, how confident are you in Watt, Jones, some other aging pieces there to be consistent enough to beat, to keep this up and be the 1 seed and then also play well in the playoffs? Can they be the best team in the NFC? Yes. Would I pick them to be right now? No. Do I think they're the most talented? No. So whatever that answer means, I'm not buying them, but I'm not selling my stock on them either necessarily. So yeah, I think before going into this year, I had them as the worst team in the NFC West. Right now, they're obviously not that. They're better than the Seahawks. Are they better than the Niners? Right now, currently, yes, but by December, I think I would have the Niners as a better team. Now, will the Niners make the playoffs? Who knows? And I would have the Rams above the Cardinals right now on talent, on paper, and even in performance. I know the Rams lost to the Cardinals, but if you take that week out of it, I still think the Rams have been the better team, and I know that's hard because they literally played each other 15 days ago. But yeah, I would have the Cardinals as a competitor, but I still think they're a year or 2 or 3 away.
Yeah, and I mean, just looking at their next game, just quickly, they play the Texans, and do you want to guess the line on that game, just quickly?
Are they home?
Yeah.
I'm going to go with 16.5.
17. That was a pretty good guess. I mean, 17 points. I mean, that's pretty. I mean, the Bills were favored against the Texans at home by only 16 points. I mean, I think the Bills are better than the Cardinals, but I mean, that's just. I mean, we'll do our picks on Thursday's episode when we do the Cowboys Patriots one, but that was just something I looked at. I mean, maybe you touch it, maybe you don't. I don't know, but that's just a crazy line in my opinion. But that was the Cardinals and the Browns. So again, yeah, Cardinals 6-0. There's a couple. Again, you still have the Bucks, Rams, Cowboys are obviously in that conversation as well. The Packers are still there. I think the Packers may be slipping a little bit. I mean, they're still 5-1, but such an easy division. They've been played amazing.
If the playoffs started right now, who's your pick to make the Super Bowl?
Well,
if the playoffs started right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to go with a biased pick, but I mean, I still think the Rams. I think the Rams haven't even played their best football yet. Their defense, if you look at their numbers, their defense is basically average. It's really not even played that well. Obviously, you still have Donald and Ramsey, but they really haven't played that well as a unit. So I think over the course of the season, again, Stafford's still getting comfortable in this offense. I mean, against the bad teams, they're going to beat up the bad teams. That's not a problem. It's the good teams that it's going to be the real question. Again, they beat Tampa pretty convincingly, I would say. So we still need to see that against like the better teams in the league. But I think as the season goes on, when the playoffs come, again, you said right now, so I guess maybe I can't say the Rams, but I think, for the future, when the playoffs do come around, I think it will be the Rams because the defense hasn't even played up to their ability yet, and the offense has basically played up to their ability, which, and they're 5-1, the one loss against the Cardinals. I would probably say the Rams. For the future and even right now, I think I may still say the Rams, to be honest.
Teams right now that I would have above the Cardinals in terms of, not standings, obviously, just who I think are better teams than the Cardinals right now. I would have the Cowboys as a better team. I would have the Rams. I would have the Packers. I would have the Bucks. I think those teams are all, I don't know about objective, but to me, they're objectively better than the Cardinals right now. And then I think you can start getting teams that are potentially better than the Cardinals. I still think the 49ers could be better than the Cardinals. Right now, they have not played better football. But obviously no Garoppolo. That was Lance's. I want to say that was his first start. I don't even remember.
First start.
That was his first start. Listen, the Vikings. I don't love the Vikings, but listen, they're better than the Vikings. But honestly, I genuinely think that they're closer to the Vikings than they are to the Rams right now. I know that's tough to say because they're 6-0 and they've looked great. And I do think they are better than the Vikings, objectively. No doubt about it. But I think they're closer to that tier than they are to the Rams tier. I think if they played, I think by the playoffs, I would guess the Cardinals are a team that 11-6, maybe 12-5 because you're already 6-0. But they're a team that I wouldn't be too scared of for, considering they're a 12-5 team. We'll see, but
I mean, I see what you're saying with the comparison. And like I do know that you think they're better than the Vikings for sure. I don't know. I think I would have the Rams, Bucks, and Cowboys probably above them, and I'd probably have them and the Packers in that next tier. Like I think them two are probably that next tier, and then you could probably go Niners, Vikings, whoever else you want. Maybe like a Saints or something. But really, the NFC it's super top heavy. Everyone else kind of sucks to be honest. While the AFC is more middle of the pack. Then obviously you have like a Bills and even though the Chiefs' record is what it is, obviously they're one of the top teams. But yeah, I don't know. I'm still a little not. I don't know why I was going to say concerned. I'm still a little hesitant on the Cardinals. I think that they definitely can be one of the better teams in the NFC. They obviously are, but when the playoffs come, we'll see what actually happens. So I think I'm still waiting out for that.
I think
you probably are.
I think that's fair. I think that's fair to have them in the same tier as the Packers right now.
Yeah, because the Packers are probably the more talented team, but they're just not playing up to that ability right now. And again, that division is so easy; they can cakewalk that division and still end up with 12 wins. So I think they're definitely on the same level. And unless the Cardinals keep proving it, then I guess we'll see. But I think that's probably a fair judgment. But again, in a week of blowouts, probably the next best game, which I mean, we were talking about it last night. Like it was boring to watch the first three quarters, but the Seahawks Steelers game, again, it's still a really boring game. I mean, the Seahawks without Wilson, as soon as Wilson goes out, it's a bad team anyways. The Steelers are obviously a bad team, even though they're 3-3, but it ended up being a really good game, at least towards the end, obviously. With TJ Watt, that sack in the first sack in overtime to just kick him out of field goal range, that was huge. Because again, they get the field goal. Who knows if the Steelers offense against obviously a really bad Seahawks defense, who knows if they're going down the field to even get points, honestly. So to get the sack, make him punt, and then the strip sack on Geno Smith when he's basically getting triple teamed on the whole left side of the offensive line. Amazing play from him. But yeah, I mean, I guess, do you have any thoughts on this game? Do you have any thoughts on the Steelers? I guess potentially, again, they could end up with 8-9 wins or somewhere around that and end up fighting for a wild card spot.
I think this is a big one for the Steelers. I mean, listen, you're not a super talented team, but you have a pretty solid defense. And if you guys play to your ceiling, then you're a team that can fight for a wild card spot. Do I think you're one of those better wild card teams? No, but as far as pure record is concerned, like you already have a pretty good head start on some of those underperforming teams, like the Patriots could be an example. You're only one game back on the Chargers, so it's like You're in a solid spot. Now, I don't love this team, but I think the first three quarters, listen, it was a lot of bad football. I think more so the Steelers defense is all right, but both of these offenses are just not good. Roethlisberger is... I mean, listen, he's just not himself anymore. Everybody knows that. Smith, obviously, I mean, this was his first start since 2017, I believe. He's just a very average backup, if that, at this point. Some bad football, competitive game at the end. TJ Watt making his case for Defensive Player of the Year. I think right now, if you maybe choose a depoy, I would probably go with TJ Watt. I know you may go with your guy. I think that is. I would not have Diggs. Listen, there's actually there's a fair amount of Diggs haters out there. So I don't want to hate too much on him because I do think a lot of the hate is kind of unjustified. But I don't think he has been Defensive Player of the Year so far.
No, I wouldn't pick Diggs either, unless he were to end up with like 12 picks or something like that. So like some ridiculous number, which obviously is not out of the question. I don't think he is as well. I mean, quickly. That one play where he got beat. I mean, he didn't even really get beat. If you look at the play, he was right on him, and the safety should have picked that ball off. But again, we'll talk about that when we do the actual episode. But I don't even really think that was his fault, to be honest. He took blame for it, but it really wasn't his fault. But yeah, I mean, Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, Donald hasn't really done much. Watt, I feel like this was kind of his first big game of the season so far. I mean, I haven't really watched.
Maybe you go Garrett. Maybe Garrett. Maybe it's Garrett. I know, but I have it between Watt and Garrett. I would not have Diggs. I know people have Diggs in there. Listen,
I think Diggs is there, but I think probably Watt, Garrett. Again, I picked Garrett preseason. He had the monster game against the Bears. They've got lit up the last 2 weeks. He did have a sack in that Chargers game. I'll check to see if he did have a sack in this game. I'd be surprised if he did, but you never know. He always like great players like that always end up with a sack or something. So I'll check it right now, but um, yeah, he did have a sack. So I mean, just gets a sack almost every game. I think he has like 8.5 sacks this year. I think. Matthew Judon, he's also a potential guy in that conversation. Obviously, you've watched him more than I have. But yeah, it's probably between Watt and Garrett, I would say. Yeah, he has 8 sacks this year, which is first, Myles Garrett. So,
Yeah, I mean, I think right now you probably have. I would probably have Garrett on that top tier. I think Watt too. I mean, listen, Watt, his stats may not be as great as Garrett's right now, but I think it's hard to argue with the fact that he just was he gave the Steelers this game. Like he
yeah.
was the reason they won this game. And I think that's hard to argue with, especially on a Sunday night when like the whole nation's watching. So I'd have him there too. I would have Diggs a tier under that. I don't know who you'd have with Diggs on that. I'd have Judon probably like a tier under where Diggs is. Listen, we can talk about Diggs later, but in general, when it comes to interceptions, I think it's a decent amount of luck. It's not all luck, but listen, if Diggs goes on to have somehow 14 interceptions or something crazy like that, then we can kind of start to talk about it as not being complete luck. But a lot of it is just like he happens to be there, right place, right time. Which, listen, to me is half luck, half skill. I've seen J.C. Jackson. He's a guy that I think leads the league in interceptions essentially since he's been on the field. And while he's a good corner, it's a lot of like teams are willing to take shots on him, and they think it's a good enough percentage that they still continue to take shots. He makes plays, but he gets beat, and I think Diggs is kind of in that same territory right now. I
mean,
would
I'll say
not have him as a. I don't even know that he's been the best corner this season. I still think he's
well,
been a top corner, but
no, I don't think he's been the top corner. I mean, I don't think again he's a really good corner. There's no question. And look, he is someone who gambles. I mean, I mean, just from watching him, he gambles on routes. He knows what routes are doing. I mean, looking back at his picks, I mean, uh, the second one against the Panthers, that was all skill. He jumped the route and made a insane catch against DJ Moore. The one against Herbert, that was against Keenan Allen. He just jumped the route and just took it away from Allen. This one, yeah, you could say it was luck because again, he goes off his hands. But honestly, to catch that ball, I mean, to look at the replay, I mean, that was a hard ball to catch. It was juggling in the air. He didn't even realize it was in his, chest until he basically like just I don't know somehow put his arms around. He hurdled the guy. He has 2 pick sixes. I mean, I think some of those stats do matter. Some of the picks that in the situations that they happen in, key situations in the game. I mean, at that point, I mean that would have won them the game at that point. And then obviously the next play they come down and score. But I mean that would have won them the game at a crucial point when you don't have the field goal, you don't go for fourth down. Again, we can talk about all that later. But yeah, I mean, again, is he at the top of that discussion? In my opinion, no. He's probably third behind Watt and Garrett. Whatever order you have that in. But he's for sure there though.
I would agree. Maybe it's not half half. Maybe it's like but I still think it's at least like 30% luck on most interceptions. I'm not taking away anything from Diggs. Listen, he has been a great corner, and the Cowboys are extremely fortunate to have him. So I'm excited to watch him the rest of the season. I think he can develop into once Ramsey's out of his prime. We'll see when that happens to be. I mean, he could be a guy that emerges as the next best corner. We'll see. I don't think he's on that Ramsey tier, and I don't think he ever will be, but he could be. And he's a different style of corner, I think, than Ramsey. Ramsey tries to be more of a he tries to be the lockdown type of guy. I think Diggs, at least right now, if he made me project, I would say he's a better version of like Marcus Peters, maybe, where he's a guy that's going to take a lot of risks. He's going to make some plays, but he's also going to get beat. Maybe like the cornerback version of Tyrann Mathieu a little bit. He has some great instincts, but he makes some plays, and he also gets some plays made on him. But for sure, been a great player so far, for sure.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. But I mean, kind of looking at other games this week, again, a lot of blowouts. I mean, you had the Colts Texans 31-3, Bengals Lions 34-11, Rams Giants 38-11. That was such an easy pick. We both had Rams there. Chiefs Washington, close game, but ended up being 31-13. Again, Chiefs still haven't looked great. I picked Chiefs in that game expecting a blowout. It ended up being a blowout, but if you were to watch that game, you'd know it wasn't a blowout. It was just back and forth. The Chiefs they really didn't look that good, to be honest. But again, they still won 31-13 against obviously a bad team in Washington. But I mean, I guess, Packers Bears 24-14. Bears kept it close. They probably had a couple of chances, honestly, to maybe do something that game. Obviously, you have the quote from Rodgers during the game about owning the Bears. That was fun. I think that was pretty funny to see.
I thought
I don't
that
know,
was,
what were your
listen, that's
thoughts on
something I
that?
wanted to talk about. Just listen. It's
I
just,
thought it was
to
funny.
me, it's cringe. Like, you may own the Bears, but you know what you don't own is more than one Lombardi trophy. And listen, I know it's kind of just like petty to even say it because, Aaron Rodgers is a top 10 quarterback at least of all time and one of the greatest to ever play the game and has probably the best arm talent we've ever seen, maybe except for Mahomes. But he hasn't performed in the playoffs. The Bears are horrible. They haven't been good since, I mean, if you count like early, mid 2000s, maybe like 2006 when they made the Super Bowl. If you even count that, they weren't even really very good. They haven't ever had a quarterback. Justin Fields is their first hope in that, to have a legit quarterback. I don't care that you own the Bears. Like that's like Brady scoring a touchdown on the Bills and when he was on the Pats and being like, I own you, or when the Browns were in the midst of their 1-31 record, Roethlisberger sneaking it for a touchdown and saying, I own you, Browns. Like, listen, nobody cares. All right, what we care about is the Packers in the NFC Championship game. They're 1-4 in Rodgers' career, I want to say, and they've lost 4 in a row. Let's see something out of that. I mean, like, I just don't care. All right, to me, it just, is it funny? I don't know. I don't know. Like, I just thought it was a little bit cringe.
I don't know. I mean, I thought it was funny. I'm not a Rodgers guy, but I don't know. I think the last year I've actually kind of turned on him a little bit. I mean, he kills us every time he plays us, but like the media stuff, I think he just doesn't really care anymore, and I think he's kind of just saying whatever he wants to say. And I'll be interested to see what he says on. I don't know if you watch Pat McAfee, but like obviously he does the interview every week. I watch it, so I think it'll be fun to see what he says about it. But yeah, I mean, I thought it was a funny situation. Yeah, I mean, you're right. The Bears. I mean, I think if you look at his record against the Bears, he's lost like 7 times in his career, or
I think
something
it's
like that.
22-5 against the
Yeah, like
Bears.
something crazy like that. He has like a million touchdowns and like 5 picks, whatever it is. But yeah, I don't know, whatever. I mean, again, if you're a Bears fan, I mean, what can you really say? He's owned you basically. If you're 20 years old like I am, I mean, he's owned you your whole life. So you can't even really say anything if you're a Bears fan. So
No, you can't say anything if you're a Bears fan, but if you're a Bucks fan, or if you're any
well,
team, if you're a fan of any team that has been more successful than the Packers, I look at it and I'm just like, this is like, just look at the bigger picture. Like, I don't know. We'll see on the Packers, but it's safe to say I'm not rooting for them, all right? So.
all right.
But listen, we can come back to this statement in January, and I don't know, we'll see. But I wasn't a big fan of it. But I mean, who really cares? I'm not like judging him as a person or anything for it.
Yeah.
I just didn't enjoy it as much as maybe others did.
All right. Well, I guess probably the last game we'll talk about. We touched on it a little bit, but Vikings Panthers again. This was like one of the closer games. 34-28 Vikings won. I guess well, I guess what I'll say is we both thought the exact same thing of the Panthers when they went 3-0 was that they're not that good, just like the Broncos. What do you know? 3 weeks later, both teams are 3-3. And yeah, I don't think Darnold. I mean, look, he didn't have a great game. Obviously, he went 17 of 41. That's almost like impossible to do in the NFL nowadays. But there were a lot of drops from his receivers. Again, not a lot of great throws, but there was just like watching. I mean, DJ Moore dropped a wide open slant for like 15 yards. That was pretty late. I don't know if it was overtime or late in the game. I forget which one it was, but I mean, he had a lot of drops in that
I think
game.
it was overtime, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
That
But
drop killed me because in one of my fantasy leagues, I started both Darnold and Moore, and that's like a solid amount of points because that's like a 20-yard plus gain right there for Moore.
yeah.
Darnold to up until the 96-yard drive had like 1 fantasy point, and Moore was at like
Yeah.
3 or something. So I needed something from them. I ended up getting a little bit from Darnold, but really nothing. But listen, I'm a Darnold fan. I think, and definitely more so than the average person. But he had a bad game. He had a bad game all the way up until the last drive when that was a huge drive. But listen, it doesn't really tell much about Sam Darnold because this is what we got from Sam Darnold is what we've seen up until, especially during his Jets career, which is out of a 4-quarter sample size, 3 out of those 4 quarters, he's probably going to be very subpar and take some shots and make some shots, but also not look great. And then, you'll see flashes. And I think we saw a flash that drive. We saw a flash. He brought him back into the game, gave him a shot for overtime. But he just hasn't been great. He hasn't been great. He had an okay start to the year. A lot of it was maybe luck, but
And I think a lot of it was McCaffrey. Ever since McCaffrey got injured, he just hasn't looked as good. And it's because, you can't just check down to McCaffrey and then it's a 10-yard gain, 15-yard gain, and that's just your easy check down to McCaffrey. So that has a lot to do with it as well. But again, this team was never going to be that good, obviously. I mean, they're 3-3. I mean, you got to look at it as if, you're 500. That's the way you got to look at it. Don't look at it as if you were 3-0, now you're 3-3. You play the Giants, then the Falcons. So, those are 2 games that you probably should win. Even though you're on the road for both games, I mean, you probably should win both those games. And then you do that, you're 5-3, then you're still looking at a wild card spot. So I think that's the way they have to look at it. I think for the Vikings, they're also 3-3. They're obviously a better team than the Panthers are. Their offense is really good. I've been impressed with Kirk Cousins this year, and I know the last couple of years he's put up some really good years, but I think he's very underrated in the way he plays. Now, is he ever going to win a big game? Probably not. He's ever going to, obviously beat the Saints a couple of years ago. But other than that, he really hasn't done much in his career in big game, playoff game type of performances or atmospheres. Again, the Vikings, they are on a bye. Then they play the Cowboys, then Ravens, then Chargers, then Packers, then Niners. I mean, that's a tough schedule right there. Out of those 5 games, I mean, you at least got to go 2-3. And honestly, I mean, you obviously want to go at least 3-2, but you at least got to go 2-3 in those games. Very tough games coming up. So I guess, 2 different or the same conference. I guess I would assume you'd pick the Vikings in this question, but I guess who do you like more, and I guess maybe who do you even trust more? Going to the end of the season.
Vikings versus compared to who? Sorry,
the Panthers.
Oh, the Panthers. I don't really particularly trust either team. I'll go with the Vikings. They just won, right? But I think these teams are pretty close. I think Kirk is the much more dependable quarterback, but I think if Darnold does work out, then I think you have Darnold who has more just big playability and off-script ability. I think Zimmer right now I would have him as maybe a slightly better coach, but I think he's more unpredictable. We've seen a lot of just stinkers from Zimmer, which I think is scary. And listen, I think if you're a Vikings fan and you just want to win a Super Bowl, you could legitimately be hoping for the Vikings to either play bad or look really bad in a big moment. So then Zimmer gets fired, because I don't believe he's the coach for the future. Now, is he a bad coach? No, but I think he lays some eggs. I'll go with the Vikings, but I think both of these teams are pretty equal. I think they're equal. So yeah. I think the Panthers would have won this game with McCaffrey, but I still think the Vikings have a better offense right now, and I think the Vikings probably better defensive. I don't know. I think they're probably better defensively if they both play to their potential. So.
Yeah, I think they're very similar. I'd probably go Vikings as well. I think their offense is more intact. I mean, you have Jefferson, Thielen, Cook, Cousins. Not a lot of teams can have that type of array of weapons, I would say. So I'd probably go Vikings as well. But again, I think they're pretty close. I think the Vikings would probably end up with a couple more wins. Probably an easier division as well. But that's probably it for football. But quickly, baseball. We've already had the ALCS and NLCS couple games so far. We'll start, I guess, NLCS again. We can kind of go through this a little quickly, but Braves up 2-0 on the Dodgers, 2 walk-offs. Definitely surprising. I mean, we both had whoever was winning the Dodgers-Giants series winning this series. Obviously, it was the Dodgers. Definitely surprising, especially last night. You have Scherzer on the mound. You already lost game 1. You almost have to win game 2 because you get those 3 straight home games 3, 4, and 5. So if you can steal one on the road, you're looking pretty good, especially I think the Dodgers won 58 games at home or 57 games at home in the regular season. So definitely surprising they're down 0-2. I mean, it's almost a must-win tomorrow. And you do have Walker Buehler on the mound, but the Braves have Charlie Morton. So that's going to be a great game, I think, tomorrow.
It is probably – listen, is it like A must-win, sure, but is it the like? Listen, let's just say the Braves win that game and they go up three nothing. Do I think the Dodgers are completely out of it? I don't. I really don't. I in baseball, I don't think we've ever seen a 3-0 comeback. No, we did, right? Or no?
The Red Sox against the
Red Sox
Yankees, yeah.
against the Yankees, yeah. But other than that, though, I don't know
I
if we
mean,
have
maybe
enough.
it's at some point, in history, but I don't even think so.
See, I think the only we've only seen one 3-0 comeback, but if any team is going to, it's gonna be this Dodgers team. They're just on. Listen, everyone said it on paper. This is maybe the best team since I don't know, maybe ever. I don't know, probably not ever, but it's a really stacked team. The Braves lost a 3-1 lead last year, so I really think anything's on the table. If you made me pick a team right now, considering the fact the Braves are up 2-0, I still go with the Dodgers to win the series. I think it's going to be a lot harder than I thought it would. I probably would have had the Dodgers in 5 or 6. I think now Dodgers in 7 is a much more realistic possibility. But yeah, I would still go with the Dodgers. I expect them to win tomorrow. I expect them to win every day, but yeah, I would still go with the Dodgers.
I probably would as well. I think the only question for them right now is their bullpen. I mean, they basically had two bullpen games the first two games of the series. I mean, Scherzer, he only had 80 pitches, but he pulled them after 4 1/3. So they've used Trinan twice. Jansen only threw one pitch, but they've used them twice. They basically use all their trust guys twice already. I know you have an off day and everything, but then you have 3 straight games. So it's kind of a question of like if you use one of those guys in game 3, you're probably not using him for game 4, or you're not using him for game 5 if you use him in game 4. So that's a lot. It's obviously strategic and managerial decisions they have to come up with. But you need a big start from Buehler tomorrow. That's going to be like he's always good in the playoffs, and I've always loved Walker Buehler. Like anytime I played fantasy, I'd almost always have him. But that's going to be a huge game. You just need like a 7 inning start from him, and then you give it to like Trinan and then Jansen, and then the game's over. Or you just blow him out, and then you don't have to use any of those guys. But you need one of those performances. I'd probably still agree. I'd probably still pick the Dodgers because I'd have trust in Buehler to win that game tomorrow. But I mean, they need some guys to step up offensively, and they haven't been playing. They have a lot of base running errors, a lot of stupid decisions, bad mistakes. Like that's not Dodger baseball. And the Braves, they've capitalized on those mistakes, and you got to give them credit. I mean, if they do make the World Series with losing Acuna, and really they're not that good to be honest. I mean, that's just super impressive to be for them. But again, we'll see. It's still a long series. I mean, this series is at least going 6 and most likely 7 in my opinion. So we'll see. But moving to the ALCS, the Red Sox Astros series tied 1-1 going back to Fenway. 3 straight games at Fenway. Again, I think being the road team in a CS series is honestly the advantage because all you gotta do is win one on the road and then you got 3 straight at home. So I think the Red Sox right now are actually in the driver's seat, especially if they win tonight. I think you have Rodriguez on the mound for them. Yeah, you have Rodriguez on the mound, so it's going to be a big game. I think the Red Sox win. They really do have a chance to win this series, but I'd still probably go Astros. That was my pick before, and I'd still probably go Astros.
I picked the Astros before the playoffs. Well, yeah, as the playoffs started to make the World Series. I think this series goes 7. If the Astros win, the more talented team wins. If the Red Sox win, probably listen, the more talented team did not win. But I think these teams are pretty close. It may just come down to who has the worse just pitching. I mean, obviously, but
Yeah.
I trust both of these lineups, obviously. So I'd go with the Red Sox, but we'll see. I think this is I'm more even though the Dodgers are down 2-0, I'm genuinely more confident in my Dodgers pick than I would be in my Red Sox pick right now. Or if I picked the Astros, I'd be more confident in Dodgers down 0-2.
Yeah, because they're so similar. I mean, they're both really good offenses, and they both like their starting pitching isn't good. I mean, we've seen that the first 2 games, especially with no McCullers. I mean, that just killed them honestly. But neither team has good starting pitching, and neither team really has a good bullpen. So yeah, it's going to come out of the offense. Whoever scores the most runs is going to win the series. And yeah, that's honestly the question. And yeah, I think the Dodgers people probably they may have more faith in the Dodgers because once they win one game, the Dodgers I think they'll get rolling. And hope, I mean, that really needs to be tonight, in my opinion, or tomorrow. But yeah, we'll see. And again, we could get a Astros Dodgers, Astros Braves, Red Sox. It's kind of weird series to be honest. I mean, I guess any Dodgers matchup wouldn't be weird, but yeah, it's going to be a good series. Yeah, I agree. This is, I think I picked Astros in 6 when we said it before the series started. But yeah, both series are going to go 6 or 7 games. So yeah, it's going to be a really good series in both leagues. Um, and yeah, it's I think when does it end? I think if anything, it ends uh, Sunday. Sunday would be the last game, no matter what. Like if both of them went 7 games or whatever. So we'll see what happens after next Sunday. If it does go 7 games, we'll probably talk about it that night when we do our football one. We'll probably just sneak it in or whatever. So yeah, it's going to be good. And then yeah, we'll see what the World Series looks like, and we'll keep following the series as well.
Quick NBA stuff. Simon practiced. Status of the
Oh, he
opener
did?
still unknown. Yeah, he practiced.
I didn't see that.
Um,
We'll see what
Tobias Harris
happens.
said, "quote unquote," it was perfectly fine about the practice. We'll see. Listen, there's a lot of question marks about this Philly team. Even if Simmons does come back healthy, well, not healthy, but not in some weird headspace. Bridges signed that 4-year, $90 million extension, and Triple J just signed a 4-year, $105 million.
Yeah.
If you have anything to say about those,
Yeah, I was gonna the Bridges. I'm okay with. I think I really do like Bridges. Again, that's the guy the Sixers could have had. They traded him. I don't know why they traded him, but the Jaren Jackson one. I mean, I mean, can he play more than like 20 games? Like, I like Jaren Jackson as a player. I think he's a really good player when he's healthy. Again, a guy can shoot threes, can handle the ball. Obviously plays as a more of a guard than a forward that he is at like 6'9", 6'10". But I mean, he's never on the court. I mean, to give him again, you probably had to keep him because of the talent that he does have, but he's just never on the court. He's never healthy. So to give him 105 million, it's not a ton, but it's I don't know. I just think that when I saw that right before class started, like I was like, I don't know. I didn't really know how to feel about it, and I think unless he could stay healthy, I just don't. I don't think it's worth it to be honest. I just think that you probably could have done something else with that. Maybe obviously he wasn't going to go for lower money, but whether you want to like trade him or something, see if he still has value out there. I don't know, but I thought that was just. I just didn't really love that contract for them. I just don't think he's healthy enough.
if I'm the Grizzlies, I still take that gamble. I don't love the contract, but it's not like we're not talking 4 years, 160 or anything. Obviously
Yeah,
for Triple J, not that I don't even think he wouldn't even be eligible for that. But we're not talking something crazy. We're talking 4 105. Is it a gamble for sure? It could, in 2 years we could look back at this contract and say this is a mistake, but realistically, I mean, what does this money block them from doing? Does it block them from going out and getting a max guy? Probably not. The only max guy they'd be able to get was a guy that pretty much wouldn't be getting a max from anywhere else. So it's tough to be like, this is a bad call. Now, if we're talking about potentially not signing him and exploring the trade market for somebody like Triple J, that's where I'm not really sure, because what is the market for Triple J? I would assume the market's not awful, but it's not anything spectacular either. It's not anything
yeah,
crazy, because whoever does trade for Triple J is giving him probably 4 and 105 and 8 too. So, I don't know exactly what you'd be getting in return, but if I'm the Grizzlies, I'd probably make this move. So I don't hate it too much. The Suns and Mikal Bridges, 490 I think is solid. He's a player though that like is great on a contending team in the regular season, and in general he doesn't really make your team anything better than what it is. It's just he's great kind of he's just a great plug and play player, great down the stretch, which is obviously huge for any finals contending team. It is a fair amount of money for a guy who we may already have seen his ceiling. So he could get better. He could definitely improve. I prefer the Mikal Bridges contract over the Triple J contract for sure. But I mean, if Chris Paul takes a step back and Devin Booker isn't able to be the number one, and DeAndre Ayton kind of stays as like a good center but not an elite center, then this team has some problems as being a kind of stuck in the middle team. But with that being said, I still do like the contract. I wouldn't have looked to just let him go for nothing eventually, or or trade him. So I like the contract.
Yeah, and I mean on the Suns, he's never gonna be like a 20-point per game scorer because you have Booker, Ayton, and Paul, so it's just never gonna happen. But I mean, he averaged 13 and a half last year, improved from three. He's always been a good defender. So yeah, he's a really solid player on a playoff caliber team, and again, possibly a championship caliber team. So I think any team would love to have a Mikal Bridges. But yeah, I mean, he's never going to be a 20-point per game scorer. It's just not. He's never going to be that. So, but I'd so much rather have a player like that than someone who just all he does is basically score, and that's really all he does, and he's not efficient at it. I'd rather have Mikal Bridges, obviously.
No,
So
same. I just
yeah.
listen. There's an argument to be made that you can get a guy like Bridges for a lot less than 490. Now it's hard to find a guy like that, but we've seen guys like Bridges kind of just maybe it's a trade at the deadline for essentially nothing, or something like that. Maybe a young guy on a rookie deal, a guy like Bridges, where he kind of just can play that same role that Bridges does. Now, that is hard to find, don't get me wrong, but if this 90 million does prevent you from going out and getting some sort of other piece, then I think you can kind of come back to this contract and regret it. But, you weren't going out and getting any max guys, so this isn't preventing you from getting some, max type of guy, but listen, I like the contract, so.
Yeah, and I think the biggest guy left of the rookie extension guy is Ayton, obviously on the Suns. So we'll see what happens with him. I think the deadline's 5 p.m. or maybe 6 p.m., whatever it is. It's coming up in the next couple of hours as we're recording this. So we'll see what happens. If they get one done, I would assume they would get one done, but you never know sometimes. I mean, he played so well in the playoffs last year that he obviously is going to want that value up, but we'll see what they really want to give him. Do they really want to give him something that's probably not really what he's worth? I don't know. But we'll see. But yeah, we got some NBA in there. Again, NBA starts tomorrow. I guess the last thing, let's just pick the games. I mean, it's only 2 games. We did it last year as well. So Nets at Bucks, and then Warriors at Lakers. So just who do you want? Not even, I mean, the spread's whatever, but who do you want in the game?
Sorry. I was looking at eight and stuff. You're gonna have to tell me that again.
Oh, I was just saying, since the NBA starts tomorrow, we did it last year. The first 2 games of the season, we picked them. I said it's Nets at Bucks, Warriors at Lakers. Just pick, whoever you want. Not even spread. Just just game. Just pick it.
Give me the Nets and give me the Nets and Warriors. Give me Curry 40 points. Give me.
Is Kyrie playing?
No.
I mean, it is at Milwaukee. I mean,
no, but they said he's not. They said Kyrie's.
Oh, they're banning him.
Yeah, they're ban. Not ban. Well, I guess yeah, I don't know about ban. That's a harsh word, but yeah, he's not allowed to play until he gets vaccinated, which he doesn't. He has not budged on as of now. So I'd assume he's just not going to play, which is interesting. But regardless, give me the Nets. And then give me the Warriors. Give me a good debut from Moses Moody. Give me a good debut from. Give me a Nick Claxton big game. I'm assuming both of those guys are playing, unless they have some small type of injury. But
I think they're playing. At least I know. I think Claxton is. I think Kyrie's the only person on their injury report, so I would assume he's playing. I'm just gonna go the opposite. I was probably gonna pick this anyways, no matter what you pick, but I'm gonna go Bucks Lakers. Yeah, we'll see. Defending champs. I mean, ring ceremony. That usually does tend to go to the other team, but yeah, I'll still go Bucks there. And then Lakers. I mean, the Lakers are the better team than the Warriors, so they should win. And they played again. They went 0-6 in the preseason. Who cares about the preseason? Honestly, I don't think the preseason. Like, if you don't win a game in the preseason, people somehow overreact to that. I think that's so dumb. NBA and NFL, but yeah, I'll go Lakers. They're the better team, and I think they'll win. So
I don't care about the preseason either. But listen, I mean, this I think it's going to take time for this Lakers team to figure everything out. It's not the same roster as last year, so
no, and they're dealing with injuries as well. I mean, I guess we can get into it, but they have a couple guys who are probably not going to play in this game. That are good depth on that team, but even still, LeBron and AD should be 100% healthy, and when you have LeBron and AD 100% healthy, you have 2 of the top 5 best players in the world. So yeah, I think that kind of trumps anything other than what you're playing. So yeah, Lakers.
Yeah, sure. All right, but that's pretty much it, right? So
yeah, that's it.
All right, appreciate everybody stayed to the end of the video. Sorry we didn't record the Sunday. I was just pretty tired. That game was putting me to sleep. I mean, the fourth quarter was exciting, overtime, obviously.
Yeah, I
But
mean, we were just gonna record in the middle of the third quarter, and then
yeah,
it got good, but we still didn't end up recording. But
yeah. Feel free to check everything on the description. Stay tuned for obviously another video coming from us on this channel Thursday, as well as on the Clips channel Thursday. We'll figure something out. There's going to be our Patriots Cowboys episode. I'm looking forward to that. I have a lot to talk about, a lot to say regarding that game. I'm sure Brandon does as well. I'm not going to do any moral victory stuff, so you don't gotta, I'll just say that now. And if I do, then, you know, comment and yell at me for. I'm not doing any moral victory stuff. I'll say that. I don't want
did
to
you
sound.
watch? Did you watch Belichick's press conference after?
I did not. No. Did he say?
It
What did he
was
say?
Well, I mean, I obviously know that like after a loss, he doesn't really talk, but like they were just asking him questions about the game and everything, and it's just like I mean, yeah, they're good, they won, it's such basic answers. I don't know, like they were like asking him about Stevenson, he played pretty well today. He's like, yeah, he's one of our running backs. I don't know, like I just like such dumb answers. I don't know. I mean, I guess he's always like that. I don't know, but
Well, that's the thing is with Belichick. Listen, I mean, I think more people are starting to come down on him, deservedly so. He's been like this the whole time. I mean, listen, 2014 after that Chiefs blowout loss, obviously the famous on to Cincinnati press conference. He's always been giving dumb answers, especially after losses. Yeah. But now that you're not a winning team, it's a lot easier to criticize, and I think it's fair to criticize him. He's not been a good coach. He has not been a top 5 coach this season. It's hard to rank coaches, but he probably has not been an above average coach this year. He's probably been a very mediocre coach. He was okay. I'm not going to get into it, so we'll wait for Thursday. But yeah, we will be back Thursday. Goodbye.